Whoa, easy there, Greg.
That wasn't me. That was the ketchup bottle.
Are you sure about that, Dad?
Yeah, I'm very sure. I didn't cut a fart at Christmas dinner. I wouldn't do that.
Welcome to Blood and Black Rum Podcast's Festivus series. This year, we're bringing you all kinds of Yuletide classics, such as Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, They Did It Again, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, oh, James Bond, you seasonal scoundrel, Trading Places, where people are just shitty, and The Santa Clauses, the newest conservative Disney Plus TV show. We hope you enjoy all season long.
Wild geese that fly with the mood of their wings. These are a few of my favorite things.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryan from ColdSploitation.com, and I'm joined with my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
All
It's
right.
Christmas!
It's Christmas time again. Yep.
Christmas!
Second episode in our Festivus series.
8 years running.
Honestly, I'm surprised we're already, it's like December 7th already. I don't know where the time's gone.
Well, you wouldn't know because it's during the middle of monsoon season right now.
I know. No snow here.
Here in upstate New York.
Yeah.
You'd think it was, we were down in Thailand or something with the heavy rain we've been getting of late. It's fucking ridiculous. My Apple phone is like mocking me every day, like, you haven't moved enough. And it's like, yeah, I know. It's been raining out. What do you want me to do? It's
Yeah, we're back with another episode of a Christmas movie, and this time I let Martin decide one of the movies, and it's a bad decision.
It was not a
I
bad
should not have
decision.
allowed him to decide, because we're going to talk about a movie that I feel is only tangentially related to Christmas, and has very little Christmas spirit whatsoever.
That's not true at all.
You disagree?
Mm-hmm. Wholeheartedly and full-throatedly.
Okay.
We're doing On Her Majesty's Secret Service finally.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only done one Bond film so far, but I mean,
This is one that you have wanted to do.
well, I would like to do all of them one of these days, but
All 27.
definitely not in a row.
No.
That Roger Moore era is rough.
This is only my like fourth or fifth. Probably like fifth or sixth Bond film.
No,
I've
you've
seen.
seen From Russia with Love. You've seen this. You've seen Goldfinger.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen Casino Royale.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen Goldeneye.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine you've seen The World Is Not Enough.
No, I haven't actually.
No.
Haven't seen it. So like I've
You
seen like 6.
You saw Skyfall.
Yeah, I think I've seen 6.
But-
Never. Just really didn't get into the Bond universe for whatever reason.
So, here's why I would say this is Christmas related. Not just because there is Christmas in this film. Sleigh bells ringing, ting, ting, tingling, and all that fun stuff. It's 2003. It's about 10 days to 2 weeks out to Christmas.
Okay. Setting the stage. All right.
Young Chris Martin is sitting down watching TV. Big fan of Goldeneye. The game, the movie. That's how I got into the Bond franchise. The game, the Pierce Brosnan movies.
Mm-hmm.
Die Another Day just came out and it was total dog shit. And you don't like Christmas at all. What's going on over at the Spike Network? The 12 Merry Days of Bond, baby, where has nothing to do with Christmas, but you know what? You get a fucking marathon for 12 days straight of Spike playing what? Nothing but Bond films from like 2002 to 2004. Every Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the New Year's for like 12 fucking days. You would get for like 3 years straight them playing every Connery film, almost every Moore film, couple of the Brosnan, one of the Daltons, and you would be like, and that's all they played all day.
Sitting
So
down
that
to
for
watch.
me, and I sat down and I fucking watched it. And you know what? That right there is why, not just this film, but Bond is Christmas to me, because you got the 12 Merry Days of Bondmas coming up on Spike.
Okay.
Followed by Mansers.
Well, I guess I wouldn't say the same about the other Bonds, but I'll allow it for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. It does.
It is the outside. I would say it's literally the only Bond film out that has Christmas.
Exactly. It is the one that actually does take place in small part during Christmas. You'll probably go for about an hour without even getting a mention of the word Christmas. Like, especially at the beginning of the film, what screams Christmas to you more than stepping out of your sandals, running down the beach, and almost drowning in the water?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Bond throwing a knife at a calendar and hitting September 13th.
Yeah, that one too, yep. Bond throwing a knife at the calendar and clearly marking that it's not December. Yep, there's another good one.
Well, not all Christmas films have to take place right around exactly
That's true.
Christmas.
Like White Christmas is one of those movies that has Christmas in it quite a bit, but it also doesn't take place all the time at Christmas. So,
like we've seen enough, A Christmas carols. We don't need fucking Scrooge running around going, "It's Christmas time,"
Yeah.
Sometimes your Tiny Tim's Blofeld, Telly Savalas with no earlobes.
I agree. No, so like I said, I'll allow it for this one. It was your pick, and we're getting some Christmas in here, and we're gonna talk about everything that occurs on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Since I hadn't seen it before, and you're pretty well versed in the Bond universe, so you know a lot more about it than I do. So we'll hopefully get a lot out of that, and then we'll also cover how Christmassy we really think On Her Majesty's Secret Service is. But let's take a break really early on in the show, because I know that we're probably going to get sidetracked with a lot of things for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. We'll take a break. We'll talk about the beer that we have on the show, because this one is going to be sort of a bigger discussion about the beer that we have on the show, because we do have an exciting beer, 2 beers actually, to talk about. Normally we don't have 2 different beers on the show. We have 1 beer. We drink a couple of them. In this case, we have 2 beers, and they're 2 different beers, but they're 2 of the same kind of beers. We'll leave it at that. We'll talk about it. This one is from Fidens, which we've had on the show a couple times before. We've had a couple beers on here. We've talked about them. They're a smaller brewery in our area, in the Albany area. They have become a very big brewer for our area, and they have like national recognition now.
World renowned for their delightful IPAs coming out of our little area.
They specialize in IPAs, and so a lot of breweries have been itching to work with them. Big breweries who also do their own IPAs, and they've been wanting to do collaborations, and they've got quite a number of collaborations under their belt. And they also work with like hop companies too. And the beer that we have on the show today is a collaboration between Fidens and Freestyle Hops, which is a New Zealand hoppery, or whatever they call places where you grow hops. I don't know if it's called a hoppery or a I don't know, a grow project. I don't know what they call it, but it's a collaboration between the two. So Fidens got the hops from Freestyle Hops in New Zealand. So these are all New Zealand based hops, and they brewed 2 different beers with the same hops, and they have called them Do You Freestyle, and there's the West Coast version and the East Coast version. Now Fidens is pretty much known for their New England style, East Coast style IPAs. They have branched out to make some West Coast versions, and in our experience, their West Coast versions are pretty much the same as their East Coast variations, except maybe just a little bit less hazy. They are pretty similar to an East Coast version, so we were interested in the differences between the two. And the other thing is, there's a lot of FOMO going on with these types of beer releases, because that they're very limited. And I just really couldn't miss it, because it looked so interesting to me. So we had our beer mule pick these up very kindly, and we've got them on the show. We got both of them today.
Hold on. I will say, he didn't pick it up. Our beer mule, Chad, this time, he did us a favor. I just said Ryan was going to have FOMO over this. I didn't even ask him to go, and I get a message from him later. hey, I got you some. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
So,
that's pretty incredible.
all because of you and
He
your
came
FOMO.
through.
He didn't even know what FOMO was. I had to explain
Oh, really?
it to him. No, he had no idea. So
Yeah. No, I mean that's great. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that we have him on the show today to talk about. And we've got them both cracked open, just so you know. So we got the East Coast and the West Coast cracked open at the same time. And I think, here towards the end, we're actually going to combine the two to try a little combination of both of them together. See what we think. So let's start out with the West Coast, because that was the first one that we cracked open. How do you feel about the West Coast style version of this?
I like it a lot. There hasn't been a Fidens IPA that we've had or have done on the podcast that I haven't liked. I like it a lot. It's really good. However, as good as it is, a couple of, as Ryan will say too, I don't really understand where they're getting the West Coast on here, because there's nothing really West Coasty about any of the West Coast IPAs and pale ales that they've done. They're always still very juicy, very hazy, very tropically. I mean, I don't want to spoil it so far comparing it to the East Coast that we've already taken a couple of, kicks from, but it's really good. I like it, but it tastes like a really good East Coast IPA. You get the nice juiciness. As Ryan said when we were trying them, it is a little dry, pairs well, slight rosiny bitterness to it, very crisp, easy drinking. I would say like fruity notes of it's kind of like grapefruity, little slight rosiny, not overly rosiny. It's very good. I like it a lot. I just don't see though how you could slap West Coast on it, because when you think traditional West Coast IPAs, you think piney, rosiny, big bold malts pairing with it, to give like a breadiness to it.
Yeah.
That's not here.
And also, important to point out too that it, when you pour it out, the colors are extremely similar on both of the beers. Where with the West Coast, you wouldn't necessarily expect it to be as cloudy as this one is pouring. This one is pouring very hazy. When you consider that it's a West Coast style. So, I pretty much agree with everything that Martin said. I think that the West Coast is a very good, very drinkable, and it's important to note that the New Zealand hops in this are Rawaka, New Zealand Cascade, and Southern Cross. And I'm not super familiar with many of both of those, Rawaka and Southern Cross. I haven't really had too many beers with those. So this one does have a very distinctive hop flavor to it. Very somewhat dank, somewhat rosiny, although I do think that the West Coast comes off a bit drier than your normal what we get from the East Coast style. We'll talk about the East Coast style too. So this one is on the drier side, still very hoppy, very hazy, has a bitterness to it, and I would say that this one has less of a juicy flavor to it than the East Coast style. So with that said, I guess we need to talk about the East Coast version of this as well, which, as I was saying, pours out basically the same color and everything as the West Coast style. And, basically for all intents and purposes, looks the same, has the same hops in it, Rawaka, New Zealand Cascade, and Southern Cross. And the only thing that really differentiates it is that what they're calling it East Coast style. So what did you think about the East Coast style one?
The East Coast one, hold on. Let's
give it another taste.
Another taste to compare. It tastes like an East Coast, but I would say it's almost more West Coasty, because even though it has all the similar notes of the first beer, the West Coast style, and being cloudy, juicy, grapefruit, great fruitiness, being kind of the forward fruit, it's more rosiny, which is something you would see in more like a traditional double, which these are both doubles, by the way, double West Coast IPA. And you would also get that, kind of flavor, from a West Coast. So it's kind of surprising that the East Coast is got more of a West Coast flavor to it. It is juicier though. So that is, not by much, but it is slightly more juicier. A little bit more rindier too. Like, has more of like a, blood orange, grapefruit rindiness to it. It is still a very good, a great IPA. But going the mile to brew the two, I have a hard time seeing it because, and I feel like I'm, bad-mouthing it. But, they are both great efforts. But they're so indistinguishable. Like, there's nothing, like, that really makes them stand out. Like, to make them, different. It just kind of seemed hard to, like, well, why the hell did you bother? Is this, like, are these beers brewed for the snobs who think they could sit and, like, swirl the shit around and discern it, like, with, everything like their sister own? I can't. I don't claim to be. I just drink them and like them. Mm-hmm. They are great efforts, and I do like both of them. But I think the effort could have been better off spent into investing into making, like, an actual West Coast IPA, finally. Or, just making a standard bearer NIPA with, different fruity taste to it. Because right now it's just, like, they're good. They're both very good. But, I have a hard time, saying which one's better or which one's got, more different characteristics to it.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I agree with the East Coast style definitely for me comes off juicier. It's brighter than the West Coast style, and I think that's one of the reasons why I slightly prefer it over the West Coast style. But I do question the differences between them because for most of like besides if you're like an actual brewer like appreciating the process of the brewing itself and like the actual recipe that they've used, I don't know that they're distinguishable enough to really make a difference for the drinker. And like probably if you were to have like one and then another, it would be like outside of, on one day and then another day, it would be difficult to determine what exactly was different about them because your memory of it would have faded to the point where you're just like, I don't know, it tastes like yesterday's. Tastes the same as yesterday's. So I do question that. I kind of would be interested in seeing like them brew one where they'd use different hops in it and hops that were really meant more for the style. So like Rawaka hops are really meant for hazies. That's what they're used for. So to use them in a West Coast doesn't really make much sense because it's just not what a West Coast style would generally use for hop. So I am kind of curious what would happen if they went with like specifically they were like trying to really like do it up and say like, hey, here's a very distinctive hazy and here's a very distinctive West Coast. Here you go.
Yeah, like a nice like Simcoe or Cascade, something that's, big, piney and bright, nice and rosiny. Like I said, they're both great, NIPAs. I can't say that enough, but I just think like, I don't know, just spend your time focusing on one instead of the other, trying to split the difference because it's there's no difference really in between the two, that make them worthwhile to checking out individually. It's more just like, you gotta try it because it's a West Coast time.
Now, have you gotten a glass so that you can pour them both together?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that at the end.
Oh, we'll do it at the end. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it at the end. All right. Well, then that brings us to the end of talking about Fidens Do You Freestyle beers. Until we get to
While
the
we're
end.
gonna say when we're rating on Her Majesty's Secret Service and how Christmassy it is, that's when we'll thread that needle.
Okay. All right. So on to Her Majesty's Secret Service. You have extensive notes on the topic. Again, like with Home Alone, you basically made your thesis statement.
Well, you said take notes.
Yeah.
So You don't want to go off the cuff anymore. You want scripts.
Well, it's good. It's good to have notes to go off of, especially ones that you can refer back to. But why don't let's give a rundown of what is On Her Majesty's Secret Service about as a
it's
Bond
far
film.
up, far out, and far more.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I bet 4 years later when Live and Let Die comes out, they wish they saved that tagline for when Roger Moore debuted.
Yeah. This is what, the 6th movie in the series at this point in 1961.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yep.
Well, 69 this one is.
Oh, 69, I'm sorry. And this is the first and only appearance of George Lazenby, right?
That is correct as well.
And at that time, he was about 29 years old. I think he's still the youngest Bond.
By a mile and a half.
Yeah, that is. Well, how old was Sean Connery when he took up the mantle?
Connery was actually pretty young.
Yeah.
But Connery also just aged poorly. Like, he just, went from... So he was 31, 32 when Dr. No came out. He was born in 1930. Yeah, 32. So he was still pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, by You Only Live Twice, which the previous film in 67, he's not 40, but he's starting to look pretty fucking old. And by the time Diamonds Are Forever comes out after this in 71, he's got a hairpiece and all. He looks fucking rough.
Yeah.
As shit. So Lazenby... Which, Timothy Dalton, who would later be Bond after Roger Moore, and he only got 2 films in The Living Daylights and License to Kill, and he was great too, as a serious, grounded Bond. He was originally somebody that they were thinking of casting, because a lot of Bonds that actually get casted, they become Bond 15 years later on. Pierce Brosnan was originally supposed to be casted in the 80s, but because he was tied up with Remington Steele, couldn't get casted, and he'd get casted later on. Timothy Dalton was on track to be Bond back during this time period too, but he turned down the role because he thought he was too young for it. He thought Bond should be an older person, in the books.
Mm-hmm.
Great for Timothy Dalton to think that, but what a fucking missed opportunity that would have been. A young Timothy Dalton in this role, because of at least in my opinion, of what a great job he does in The Living Daylights and License to Kill. I think that could have been a great chance. But instead, we get this hulking, beautiful, slightly boorish, inexperienced model from Australia, George Lazenby, as our Bond. But I'll tell you what, and this is a film that I only saw before college, probably once or twice, because they never aired it on TV for whatever reason. Maybe they showed it once or twice on, never during the Bondathons. It was always maybe once or twice on a random showing of TCM or USA. Never liked it because, it's George Lazenby. He only in one film. Can't be good. It's not that good. It's not until I got to college where I really started to appreciate this film and really enjoy it, because it is a great film with great action and a lot of great fucking ideas in it. And I'm not the only one that's come around over the years to this being a great Bond film. A lot of people have, and an underappreciated gem, because I think after Connery's exit with You Only Live Twice, which by that point the franchise is kind of going batshit stupid with its comedy and campiness and all that, falderall. Once he's gone, we're finally, we're going back to basics. And I think that's appreciated, especially in 1969, where, the film landscape is all over the place. You got more serious films coming out, like The Wild Bunch and Easy Rider. So, to kind of have it kind of come back to earth and not be this over-the-top, stupid spy thriller, and be more grounded in, how Dr. No was, is great. And it's a sad thing, because I think after you watch this film, you kind of sit and think, you just start, me, daydream of where the franchise could have gone after this if Lazenby stuck around, because the 70s is a dark time for the Bond franchise. I don't care if you're a Moore fan, you grew up with them, so I'm sorry. more films are bad.
Well, are you a bigger fan of the Bonds that go more serious than like goofy? Like,
Yes,
because
it's the same. It's the same way I treat my Lupin the Third. I like my Lupin more gritty, realistic, and grounded in reality. Like it's got its campiness and it's funny, funny bits and stuff, but it's more, hardened and based in reality than campiness, because the films that Moore does that are like that, I mean, The Spy Who Loved Me is kind of like a catch-all. It's got like everything in it, but like it is kind of a little bit more grounded than the rest of his work, is great. And For Your Eyes Only, which is a film that a lot of people don't really care for that watch, I like a lot because it's incredibly simple, basic. It's just a basic spy thriller. So I do like that, because it's the same way, like, a lot of people love Goldfinger. I think Goldfinger is okay. I think From Russia with Love, which is my, 1A and 1B with this film when it comes to Bond films, which we've done when Sean Connery unfortunately passed away. I love that film because it's a great spy thriller and, shows what, this franchise could be if taken, in a serious direction.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not to say, like, On Her Majesty's Secret Service still is a bit campy. It still has the spy, campiness and occasional forays into like goofy comedic territory, but it does keep things a lot more grounded in reality and more grounded in focusing on the plot and furthering that and sort of in the spy wheelhouse instead of like going straight up cheesy. I think, like, in this movie, right off the bat, like, you can tell that we're still getting, like, sort of the exploitative elements that sometimes creep up into the spy movies, especially with Bond, especially, based on the novels. It's pretty apparent at times that, there was some misogyny going on in Ian Fleming's work. And that's pretty well known, based on his books, that women were, did not have, the best treatment in novels, and a lot of times they were eye candy and just manipulation for the protagonist. And here we get that a little bit, but it does remain a lot more grounded as Bond takes on a number of different espionage tactics, including pretending to be a master of genealogy for the Regency, as well as
No, not genealogy. Heraldry.
Yeah, heraldry.
The English art of are you poor or not? Hear ye.
Pretty much. I know. They're all like, I hope I am. I hope this tree works out. It's yeah. But yeah, so I guess to sum up the main plot, Bond is out and this is post some of his work previously with Blofeld.
The last film is with You Only Live Twice. That's where you get everyone's iconic image of Donald Pleasance as Blofeld. You know, the Dr. Evil looking fuck. Though he's only in the film for like 10 minutes. But like up until that point, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and Thunderball all have little snippets of Blofeld in them, because it's working up to, this idea of like who's the head of Spectre, as he's sending, this head's sending out these agents to combat Her Majesty's Secret Service. So,
and what was
we finally get the run in the last film with Blofeld. So, and
what was the reason Donald Pleasance did not reprise on Her Majesty's Secret Service?
Probably because they just didn't think about it. I'm not so sure, but I mean, well, originally Donald Pleasance wasn't even casted for that role. Mm-hmm. It was hold on, I gotta pull it up because it was a Czech actor that they had for like a little bit.
I mean, it's kind of interesting that
they had Jan Werrick as Blofeld in You Only Live Twice, and they shot for like 7 days and said, he's not going to work. He looks too much like Santa Claus. So
you didn't want to like draw attention to the fact that like Santa Claus might
he looked
also
like
be
like a nice he looked like a nice kindly old man.
Yeah.
So I mean, but again, it's the same thing too. I mean, I think it's more just out of convenience because the same thing. Like one of the reasons why, and there's a lot of reasons why, the follow-up to this is so fucking bad, Diamonds Are Forever, is that they casted Charles Gray, great actor, you probably know him from Rocky Horror Picture Show saying, "It's just a jump to the left." Mm-hmm. He was, a ninja in You Only Live Twice. But they brought him back in that film as Blofeld, and as hilarious and campy as an actor he is, it's not really what you want to the follow-up to this film. So, like him being campy Blofeld running around in a fucking jumpsuit is just, infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it makes sense within the confines of the Bond franchise because it's always expanding. It's always, changing.
Continuity is not really a thing. It's just...
Yeah, and I think, that's... I guess it makes sense to have Telly Savalas here instead. But I just wondered, why Donald Pleasance was not interested in coming back. But maybe it had nothing to do with him being interested or not. Maybe it was, Donald Pleasance was super busy at that time too. So. Well,
I think also too with the plot point that the family that they have, no earlobes. I think that would have. Kind of made Donald Pleasance not be able to come back.
Yep. So basically, the main idea here, like I was trying to say before, is Bond he's in the.
From what I looked up, they want somebody who's actually physically threatening. Looked like an equal to George Lazenby, which, Telly, I love you. You're not as imposing as George Lazenby.
Yeah. So I guess like to boil down the plot, basically we have Bond who is on the outs within this operation to take down Blofeld. Basically
Operation Bedlam.
Yes, they're his what do you call him? His handler.
Boss M.
Yeah, his boss
M.
is not interested in having him participate anymore. And so basically a really funny part in the movie is when Bond is basically, I'll get back at him. I'll just submit my resignation. And he submits it, and then he walks in on M, and M just says,
permission granted.
Yeah, permission granted. And he's like, you could see Bond's face just kind of fall like, oh, shit, called my bluff there. And then we find out, oh, wait, the resignation wasn't actually submitted. It was for time off.
Miss Moneypenny put in for a fortnight off.
Absolutely.
Then you get afterwards, after he, sulks off to continue the mission secretly, you hear M go, "What would I do without you, Miss Moneypenny?"
Don't you love that? The sexual tension and also, sexual harassment that's taking place in this, this professional office.
It's for His Majesty. It's for Her Majesty's government, so it's all done in, for Her Majesty.
That's right. Because Bond just walks in and right away, Moneypenny's like against a cabinet, and he's like, right to the ass. Nice slap on the ass, nice peck on the cheek. And then, there's all this flirtation between them. He's like, I'm taking you out for dinner, Moneypenny. And damn well that Bond doesn't really care that much about Moneypenny. He's chasing skirts with younger women. Not. I'm sorry.
Down on the beaches of Portugal.
Sorry, Lois Maxwell, but he's interested in the younger crowd.
Which, speaking of, chasing skirt down Portugal. What a great opening that is too. After we see, excuse me, nice IPA burp. Got another one. Him down, down in Portugal, driving on the road.
Yep.
Gets this crazed woman driving in a red car, passing by him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm interested. What's going on here?" And we don't get to see Lazenby at first. It's all shadow. It's all silhouette as he's pulling out his nice cigarette case and popping one, and it's all silhouette. We don't see him. I love that because that's like a perfect like if you were to introduce everyone loves Connery, how are we going to introduce this new fella that we're going to try to sell as James Bond? What, like, that was great. Like, that, like, you know, nice tension that they build up until you finally see as Diana Riggs running into the ocean to commit suicide, that, you know, and you finally see him hop out of the car and chase after him. You see this big, hulking, beautiful beefcake come chasing after you.
Yeah,
to hear that sultry voice, it's like, oh, man, this guy is Bond.
How do you feel about George Lazenby as a, you know, as an attractive Bond in this movie? Because basically the movie, especially later on when he goes to Blofeld's like super lab where he's in the Swiss Alps where he's studying allergens. He goes there and there's like, you know, 15 young women that are staying there, and they all go pretty much insane as George Lazenby walks in as not as James Bond, but as his alter ego, Sir Hillary. And you know, how do you feel about that? Do you agree with the film that he's just like irresistible as he walks in, so suave, so
yeah, I
gallant?
think George Lazenby is a handsome fella. He looks great. He is a big, for the 60s especially, beefy guy, you know, built to the nine. Yeah, he's more imposing than Connery. Like, one of the great things about you know, George Lazenby in this film is, yes, because he's inexperienced as an actor as he would in a lot of places, yes. But when it comes to, like, the fight scenes, he is fucking imposing. And he beats the shit out of people in this film.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, he looks just like a hulking, brooding mass, even though he's not really hulking. Like, he's not, like, small, but he's also, like, you know, he, like, you look at him, you're like, yeah, it's a formidable guy. The only thing I'd say is a lot of the outfits they throw him in this are incredibly garish. And you would say, like, usually how, like, you know, when you go from one decade to the next, you can see the transition. Boy, can you ever in this film see the transition from the 60s and the 70s here with the garish browns and beiges and pea-colored, like, furniture everywhere. It's just like, oh, God. The fucking whole casino hotel with this decadent, like, Carthaginian purple going on. It's like, oh my God, what hellscape have we entered into?
Yeah,
is this Caligula or is this a Bond film? I don't know.
I mean, I agree. I think that, you know, he does a great job here, and I think that also, you know, you talked about how the fight scenes are choreographed and stuff. Peter Hunt, the director, he does a really good job with directing them, and I saw people describe the fight scenes as sort of like chaotic but still followable at the same time. Like, they're, you know, they have a nice action to them that, like, in a flow.
Which Peter Hunt, this is the only Bond film that he directed, he was the second unit director on a lot of those early films. So like, he has experience, you know, producing you know, and shooting those action type sequences. So he does have a good eye for it. My only disagreement with that was I think a lot of the editing in some of those parts, especially that, like, first fight scene, the quick cuts and everything just look really bad today. Like, it ruins a lot of the flow of what's going on. Like, I think you could have done better if you just, like, shot and showed the whole, like, kind of scene go out, because a lot of these, like, visceral moments, like Bond punching somebody or jump kicking them or throwing them around, and then you have this quick cut to them, like, really close up and then back, and, like, it's followable, but it's like, especially, like, it hinders it. You know, I still think a lot of the action in this film is really enjoyable, but that's definitely something, like, with the editing choice on that, of how they wanted to kind of portray some of that action, I just don't think works incredibly well today. Mm-hmm. Like, it loses kind of that visceralness because of how they have it kind of chopped together.
Yeah, what do you think about that fight scene when Bond is going into his hotel room, and that's pretty early on, you know, after he's already met Diana Riggs' character in the casino, And he walks in. He's pretty much expecting her. He walks in and he's kind of looking around, and then all of a sudden he just gets karate chopped in the back of the neck. That actually caught me by surprise. When we just assassin in the room.
Not only assassin, a black assassin. So and every white man's fear. But no, that that was great too. Like it's very visceral. He's smashing chairs. They're strangling each other. They're punching. It's very visceral and very well choreographed and looks great, sounds great. Again, that has the same problem though, where it has these little quick cuts where everything's kind of a little choppy, and everything's kind of shot a little close together after these big moments of after you see Bond punch up, it quick cuts to these this close up of Bond's nipple, and it's all right, what's going on here? But it's still really good. Like I said, I don't want it to seem like it's not good, because I do think the action in this, especially the fights, are really good and well done, well choreographed. I think the editing, by today's standards, though, it doesn't hold up.
So basically, after that whole scene where he's already met Diana Rigg's character, and they've kind of been flirtatious and they have a one night stand. He goes to see Draco, and
he doesn't go see him. He's
escorted to go see him.
Bond was about to go on a golfing trip before a man with a gun and a knife pull up and take him on a. Which I love, just seeing him sling those clubs over his back. I just had pussy last night. Time to go play the back nine.
But I love when he goes to see Draco, and Draco's basically you have to marry my daughter. You have to. She needs a man. And as you said, and you got me prepared for that. There's a bit of smacking around for poor old Teresa or Tracy. And
it's not just that she needs a man. She needs a man to make love to her, to dominate her.
She needs domination. And I like too how Bond kind of brings that up too. He's like, everything that we did, and he's like, don't worry about that. Don't you worry.
Well, the guy that he beat up was creeping around, the black guy that he beat up. That's one of Draco's associates. He was listening at the door. He's like, oh yeah, don't worry, you went down 100 beaver, so you're taking care of her too. So don't worry, you're a gentle lover.
I forgot to mention too. What do you think about having a bed out on the balcony?
That was just the 60s.
Yeah,
just the 60s. Just
what if it rains?
So
what if it rains? You know what? Your bedclothes are wet. That's what happens. You get a nice mildewy mattress.
Listen, Draco's more worried about somebody taking care of his daughter's fields. Okay, so
they'll replace the bed. No problem. No, but yeah.
I would say that is great though, because I do love how he gets kind of cordoned off, and he's going down there, and then they get into another great little fight, and as Bond breaks through, he gets in, you got that great shot of Bond. As he's seeing Draco for the first time, he's got the throwing knife in his hand, and Draco's like, come sit down, Mr. Bond. I've been expecting you.
Yeah, he's got the knife at the ready. It's great.
Though his suit is also garish. That fucking turtleneck and beige thing, whatever Lazenby's wearing, it's oh god, it looks so bad.
Again, it was the 60s.
No, it's the late 60s, because the early 60s, you didn't look like that. Like I said, you can tell we're heading to the 70s, and it's going to go totally awry. But
that basically puts everything in motion, because Draco, is basically helping.
He has info on Blofeld.
Yep, he's got.
And
info.
if Bond wants to know about where Blofeld is, because he's been taken off of the Operation Bedlam to find Blofeld because he hasn't made any progress. If Bond starts to date and potentially try to marry his daughter, he'll give him the information on where to find Blofeld. So,
and not only that, but if he wants $1 million dowry,
£1 million,
he'll court Tracy as well. If he wants that money. So that really sets it in motion. He's got Draco kind of in his pocket to help him out, and
I don't think it's really Draco in his pocket. It's more Bond's in his pocket.
That is true. Yeah,
because Bond has really raging hard on. I mean, obviously after the first 5 films, he's been basically chasing Blofeld since Dr. No. To be taken off the operation, you can see that he really wants to be able to close that case. So
yeah, and so there's a great moment where he has to break into this guy's office, and he's kind of got one of Draco's henchmen at his lookout. Breaks in. He's got a few minutes, or I think it's like a half an hour, right? Basically, it's like his lunch break. He's got his lunch break to go in and crack open the case.
Oh, an hour. The Gamal's
Swiss.
Swiss.
The what do they call him? Solicitor. The solicitor.
Well, he's attorney, so solicitor.
They call him solicitor, and he breaks in, and he's got he's basically got this cool little safe cracker that he uses. And he's just sitting around because there's nothing for him to do. He's just, letting the machine do the work. Pulls out a Playboy, admires a Playboy.
I didn't realize until watching it for this time that the fucking construction site nearby had Draco written all over.
Oh yeah, yep. I noticed that right away.
I never noticed that until now. Because the guy that's helping him is one of Draco's associates, but it is great, because it's real genuine spy work. To find this information, you need to do this, and he sneaks in, and he's got this big stupid fucking safe cracker that's also a Xerox machine, which is funny because in the beginning of the film, Q's like, the future's miniature. You can't do all this shit big. You gotta shrink it down. And here's this which I imagine by 1969 they're like, yeah, see what we did there? That's tiny.
Yeah.
So, which but I do like that whole spying bit in Zurich, is really good and really well done and tense, but it's not going to really be tense because it's not really going to be that close of a call, but it is a fun, simple bit that kind of, builds onto this.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that the film has a lot of great set pieces too. That's a fun set piece. But then once we get to the Swiss Alps, where we know that Blofeld has his little his science experiment lab up there,
allergy lab.
We get a lot of great things. We get the Alps themselves look great. We get a lot of good cinematography of just people enjoying the Alps, people skiing and the slopes and lots of environmental views because we take a helicopter ride, and once we get up to there's a lot of great moments when he's actually in the lab and posing as Sir Hillary. I think that part of it with the espionage, even though the believability is somewhat out the window once Bond gets up there and he thinks you have to kind of factor in a couple different things here. Bond, first of all, had to learn genealogy in what? I don't even know. It doesn't, the film doesn't really give us a time frame so much, but very quickly he had to learn genealogy and then pose as though he's part of the Regency for,
the London College of Arts.
Yeah.
Well, it's fine because later on in the Moore films, anytime something scientific was happening randomly around, he'd be when we get to see Bond show up when M's doing his fucking butterfly hobby and they have to break out the the Latin term for what it is and stuff. The Moore films are literally littered with this. He would just M would be like, "Do you know about this?" And then Bond would go into a fucking robot mode and spit out this big scientific term. So it's kind of nice to see that he actually kind of is I know I have to kind of study on this to make sure that my cover is foolproof. Right. However, that being said, here's one of the big plot holes in this film. They already fucking met and you only live twice. Blofeld knows what Bond looks like. He's already ran into him. Blofeld, you can kind of understand if Bond doesn't know exactly what Blofeld looks like in this because Blofeld probably had some plastic surgery along the way to get to look more like he's got a claim to the countship. But Bond is already known to Blofeld. So Blofeld, whether or not Bond's information's right, Blofeld knows what Bond looks like. Blofeld knows what Bond sounds like. So him throwing his voice to be like Sir Hilary Bray for 30 minutes is totally unnecessary. Like, you could literally just have George Lazenby do that part.
Right.
Because the only difference between Bond and Sir Hilary Bray is he's wearing a fucking Sherlock Holmes hat, has Sir Hilary Bray's voice, and has a fucking pipe that he's like, knocking the tobacco out of.
It's great because when he gets, when he's like heading there and he's like, got this pipe, this will be good cover. Basically, you can see that going through his head.
It's a nice idea, but especially by today's standards, it's so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe they overdubbed Lazenby during, like I said, I don't know. It's speculation. Maybe they did it because, again, we know he's not that good of an actor yet, so let's just dub his lines over so it's more, So I don't, or maybe they did think they were being smart. I don't know. Maybe they could very well be like, no, we dubbed him over because we thought the audience wouldn't fucking know. These dumbasses just saw, one of those Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns. They can't fucking tell the difference. So I don't know what it is, but it's a bad decision. They should just let Lazenby play the part. Sneak in as Sir Hilary Bray. But he also probably should have went in too, knowing that, there's no secret, height, there's no gimmick that he could have put on that Blofeld wouldn't have known that was him. Blofeld knows who Bond is. Blofeld's been fighting against Bond for 6 films. Blofeld met Bond last film. So, it's just unnecessary. And I think if the franchise, up until the recent films, decide to kind of stick to some kind of level of continuity, you wouldn't have these kind of fucking problems. But they don't. The continuity's always fast and loose. So,
right,
you get that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it does add a fun, sort of espionage to it. I don't think it's really believable, but it's kind of fun as he goes through, and you have those meetings with Blofeld where he's they're basically going back and forth. He's like, I don't really know. You're not the Count yet.
I love though. I have the proper paperwork here, and he's like, yes, but are you sure that's proper? He's like, this is the proper paperwork.
Yeah, right. I know.
He's only if I talk to you, then I'll truly know if you're the Count. Well, here's my paperwork.
And not only that, but they have to go to this one particular area where he's
Ogdensburg, the Count de Blechump.
Yep. We absolutely have to go here to make sure that we research you a bit better. No, I think that's it's a really fun element to it. It definitely adds some running time to the film because the film is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. So it definitely adds a bit of running time, and all of the lead up to getting to the Swiss Alps and things like that takes a bit of time. But later on, about probably
50 minutes.
Yeah,
so
probably about an hour in, in or an hour left to the movie.
Excuse me.
You get some great set pieces, especially a lot of action scenes where you have Blofeld and Bond kind of chasing after each other. That's after Blofeld reveals you're not really fooling me. I know you wouldn't. I know a professional from the Regency wouldn't just come here and seduce women on their off time.
How did you feel about the whole? All the girls are like, I thought you were gay.
It's hilarious.
Because he's when they're like, oh. They're like, Irma Bunt's meet all the girls. And he's like, oh, I don't really like young girls.
Yeah.
And then, he's going around seducing all of them. And
I love
every time he runs into them, they're like, I didn't think you liked girls, Hilly.
I love the one woman who writes her room number on his thigh.
Yeah.
And then later on, she's like, Irma Bunt's like, is anything wrong? And he's like,
just a case of stiffness.
Just a case of stiffness of the shoulder. Hilarious. I do too, it's Bond is madly in love with Tracy at this point. They're supposed to be be a great couple. We get a nice montage of them walking through flower beds and
Well, hold on.
fountains and stuff. And then
Hold on.
you have him here.
Hold on. Time out. First off, that is a beautiful scene. Especially when Bond chases after Tracy after she figures out that her father's trying to sell her off. Where, he, like, goes to console her and you see that she's, like, actually heartbroken about it. Whether or not it's because, Bond isn't trying to actually be with her, or if it's because her father's just selling her off, which I'm sure by that point she should be used to by. The fact that Bond goes to console her and, like, how that kind of plays out between Bond and Diana Rigg is awesome. And then getting that Louis Armstrong, like, love bit is beautiful. Like, granted, it's that film, like, 2-week romance of, like, they fall in love. But you get that nice, we have all of the time in the world, with that nice John Barry score and, like, dancing on the beach, going to the store and buying expensive things, and then 2 weeks later, they're in love! So, I mean, as stupid as it is nice, though. But, I mean, to hold to your point of Bond going around still fucking all these other bitches, well, Geralt in The Witcher, he loves Yennefer, still getting all that ass, though. So, I mean, that's up for you to decide.
No, I think that he's definitely practicing some infidelity. That's what or threatened infidelity.
That was work. He was putting in work.
Yeah, that's easy to say.
Do you want to fuck that bitch that's from, like, wrote that 8 on his leg? Like, I'm from Lancaster. I used to be afraid of chickens, but now I go to eat the chickens. He was doing God and country a favor, okay? There was no pleasure there. And you know what? It was so pleasurable that line he used to seduce her, when she was like, let me put the light on, Hilly. And he was like, no. You're a beautiful picture and you're better lit by the fire. He used that on some other broad 5 minutes later. So, it...
Hilarious.
It is, though, because it's just so fucking stupid. Irma Bunt, though, is what makes, like, that whole part great. Like, like, bring up and down and, like... She's fucking brilliant. I love her.
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the various skiing and bobsledding...
Winter. Christmas.
Christmassy activities that are going on in this movie.
Well, this film was also brought to you by the Olympics, because everyone's wearing a fucking Olympic jacket.
I know.
How do you think the Olympics felt afterwards? Like, oh, this film used our jackets with our logo on it, and
for the villains. Yeah. the villains are the only ones with the Olympic jackets on.
I know. Everyone that's evil in this film has an Olympic jacket.
Yep. Well, what do you think about those skiing scenes and bobsledding scenes?
Great. This film has some of the best action, not just in any Bond film, but of all time. Seriously. Especially for that last hour to 50 minutes. It's like nothing. It's like a pure sugar rush.
Yeah, it pretty much has a nonstop action-y moments to it.
Nonstop action. Granted, because it's the 60s, there is green screen work at hand.
Oh, yeah.
And you get to see it in full front and center. But the actual shots that are shot on the second unit and are practical, they're fucking great. The whole ski chase sequence, the first one, is fucking great. Where they're sorry.
Jeez.
I know, well, this is what happens when
your IPAs.
Taken too. Well, I'm being like you. The whole sequence of Bond escaping Piz Gloria is great. Let's start with him trapped in the clock tower after Blofeld caught him and figured out, like, if you were a real genealogist, you would know that the Count de Blechump, families in Saxony and on Ogdenburg, or whatever the fuck bullshit. Again, like, Blofeld should have known. Anywho, and he gets trapped in that clock tower, which I kind of think is what inspired the loop, the whole, well, not the clock tower, the ski, the basket thing. What the hell's that called?
The gondola?
Yeah, the gondola. That whole sequence kind of reminds me a lot of what would later happen at the end of the Castle of Cagliostro, the Lupin film.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole bit of once Lazenby's, Bond's trapped in there, trying to figure out how the hell to get out of there, and his only idea is, I gotta get out. I have to escape, or they're gonna kill me. I have nothing but my wits. What am I gonna do? He rips the pockets out from his pants to make gloves so he can start climbing on to the actual cable. And usually in a Bond film or any kind of film like this where, you expect the hero to win, you would expect it to be easy. It's not. It's trying. And there's 3 times where he almost dies trying to do it before he's finally able to overcome it. It's fucking tense, and it's fucking great, and it's something you would never see in a Connery film, or a Brosnan film, or a Craig film, or because Bond is infallible. Bond can't be seen as mortal. Lazenby's Bond offers you that opportunity to see Bond at a vulnerable standpoint, because this whole escape from Piz Gloria is Bond at his lowest and most vulnerable. Him working his way out to almost falling to his death, getting crushed, and then finally being able to escape, and then being able to sneak back into Piz Gloria to figure out what's Blofeld's planning on doing with the Angels of Death, and then sneaking into the ski cabinet, skiing down for his life, brutally murdering 2 people by slamming a ski in. One gets yeeted off the mountain, and you get to see...
Hilarious. You get to see that for a full 10 seconds of this man just plummeting off this mountain.
And you're like, oh, that can't get any more brutal than the other guy he fights to get the second ski after his one ski is shot, and you see him skiing down the mountain with one ski, which is fucking tense and great. You get to see him yeet another guy off the fucking mountain, make his way back into town with Irma Bunt and the biathletes hot on his trail, and he's running for his life, scared. You get to actually see fear when he's checking back to see, because he has no weapons, he has no allies, he's all alone, trying to get back to safety. And a fucking guy dressed in a bear costume scares the ever-loving shit out of him. It's like a perfect slasher moment, this whole chase. And it's brilliant until you get to see that beautiful light that Tracy, just by the grace of God, happens to be there and help him along. That whole part is 25 minutes long. It's tense, but it's exciting and great action with great pacing. It's a perfect action scene. Even to today, it holds up. It's beautiful, and I love it. I can't... Because, again, that level of vulnerability you would never be able to see in any other Bond. Maybe Brosnan, but not any other Bond. Because you would never see that. And Lazenby's able to deliver that. He's not just menacing. You actually get to see a Bond whose life is in threat. And you feel like, holy shit, his life is actually in danger at this very moment.
Yeah, I think one of the best sequences of the skiing parts too is when Bond is skiing down, there's this snow plow going through. It's kind of plowing out a run into the side of the mountain for whatever reason, because for the most part we see this mountain is untouched snow that they're skiing down. They're doing SSX tricks off houses that are just on the slopes here, and then there's this random snowplow that they go past, and one of the guys that's Blofeld's henchman gets sucked into it and spit out on the other side, and Bond says he has guts.
literally the most brutal death in any Bond film. You thought falling off a fucking mountain 2 times over was brutal. Here you have that poor fucker get mangled by a snowblower. Yeah. And the blood and shit shooting out from the chute, and everyone going by it oh, what the fuck's that? The guy driving it I wonder what I hit. Yeah. Did I hit another raccoon? And then fucking Bond be oh yeah, he's got guts. It's Jesus.
It's a grisly fountain of this man's blood just shooting out.
It's Jesus Christ.
I know, it's so gory that it's actually funny, because it's just a ridiculous moment, but I enjoyed it. I thought that was
No, I do think it's nice because, again, it's like really grisly and realistic, but at the same time, it's like, holy shit, like, you know.
They went there.
So what do you think, though, of, like, the whole Pease, like, you got a little sidetracked there. So what do you think of Bond's escape from Pease Gloria? Like, that whole...
I liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole, like, last hour of the movie because, like you said, it does really not let up. I mean, there's maybe that one scene where Tracy and Bond get together again, and there's the like their night together. But other than that, it's really not. It doesn't let up from the action, and there's always that pursuit at hand. You know, Blofeld's right behind them, so it doesn't really give us much of a chance to
that car chase is amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't give us much of a chance to like sit back or relax or anything like that. And I think that's a really good part of the movie.
Let's say that car chase, but when Tracy and Bond re-meet again, which we don't even see Tracy for 45-50 minutes of this film.
Yeah, she's gone for a long bit.
She's gone for a long while. So when she shows up, that car chase that they have, you know, with her and her cougar and fucking them in their little German Soviet car is fucking great. And then when they hit the stock car race on that ice rink, it's fucking amazing. And it's just, that's also really like Lupin-esque, like, you know, them trying to get away and Bond cracking all these one-liners and giving Tracy a kiss and Irma Bunt like, go faster, run through them, shoot, you know, it's, I love it. And then you get to see the poor other guys driving these cars like, you know, like, what the fuck's going on?
I know. Yeah,
I'm just trying to win this race in my little Mini Cooper, and this bitch in her fucking car is running all off the road.
No, I mean, I think it's a really cool sequence, and we didn't even talk about like what leads them to really need to take down Blofeld at this time. You know, Blofeld basically has this plan to unleash like biological warfare, and his
great idea too. I would say out of like all the Bond villains, this is one of the smartest ideas ever. Develop a virus that's going to make all the cereal and livestock in the world infertile, so you would basically wipe out food in the world. It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's horrifyingly brilliant. It's one of the ones that could actually occur, like could happen.
And he even brings up how, like, you know that nasty case of hand, foot, and mouth disease that hit London last year? I could tell you how it happened, because it was me. You know?
Right.
You know, it's great. It's like, it's one of, like, the simplest ideas ever, but it's just, like, incredibly brilliant. It's like, yeah, that would be scary. Like, have you ever thought about, like, you know, anything like that? And probably not, because you're like, oh, I'll never go starving. And then you're like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
That means like wheat, rye, all this shit's gone. What'd you think? What'd you think of? And I didn't notice it actually until this time around. And I've seen this film like 10 times. What'd you think of the brilliantly stereotypical every person from every country like having their allergy be a stereotypical food for them? So like the poor Japanese girl, her allergy's rice, and you see her shoving down rice. The Jamaican girl, allergies bananas, and she's sitting there shoving bananas down, and you know. Oh yeah, no, it was very stereotypical, and I definitely noticed that right away. I like how half the time Bond is like looking at theirs, and she's like, this one girl's just eating corn on the cob. Like that's her meal, is corn on the cob. The Indians eating paneer. It's like what? Like what? It's like I don't know why. Maybe it's because my DVD copy that I've seen it on, I wasn't watching on like high def screen, so I wasn't really paying that much attention to. But watching this like on a 4K TV, it's like holy shit, that's not good. I know. Yeah, no. I definitely noticed that. Pretty well, Hilly was too busy getting an 8 drawn on his leg to go and, you know, dump his seed. Yeah. So. How'd you like Blofeld's hypnotic, I'm going to pop cassettes in it and tell you what to do? Oh, yeah. Wait, when does that not work? Just a nice little hypnotherapy there. After some nice post-coitus, like, now, Hilly, it's time for me to love chicken.
I know. No, I enjoyed it. I mean, Telly Savalas has a great voice, so.
He does. What'd you think of Bond curling?
Amazing. It's a good player.
I don't think I've ever seen curling with bowling pins. Is that how it's supposed to be played?
It's like shuffleboard, but also curling. I don't know what exactly it is, but yeah.
I love that he falls ass over tea kettle when he's doing it, because he's like, I'm Hillary and I don't like sports. And
Yeah, he really makes that known, especially like when Irma asks him on the helicopter ride, like, do you ski or anything like that? And he's like, I'm not much of a activities person.
I love too the fact when he comes over and she was like, "How was your trip?" And he's like, I dreadfully hate traveling, so it was garbage."
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's very
like who said, like, does he have autism? Like, who said, like, comes out, like, if you like had a bad trip, you're like, "How was your trip?" You usually don't go, "It's fucking bad." You're like, "Oh, it's good.
It was
good."
horrible. The worst trip I've ever taken. I know. All right. What about the last scene where they actually take down Blofeld? Basically, Bond gets a hold.
That whole bobsledding sequence is fucking great too. Because hold on, you jumped too far ahead.
I'm not trying to go in order.
Oh well, okay. Well, you jumped too far ahead. You should go in order because that's how I got everything organized. Draco's assault on Peace Gloria. What'd you think of that?
I liked it. I thought it was very entertaining. Again, a very entertaining, very well shot action sequence that they, it's all well done from the director's standpoint. It's I don't know. It feels a lot even better sometimes than our contemporary movies, action movies.
Did you like Bond sliding on the ice, shooting the guy as he gets off the helicopter?
Absolutely, and I have seen that clip before. I don't know if you've sent it to me before, but
set to It's like you're playing like a EA fucking Bond game from like the Xbox and GameCube, like doing like a Bond moment where like like when you're playing Nightfire. It's awesome. What'd you think of the guy, the black guy who was Draco's associate, other than burning the man alive with a flamethrower for no reason.
Well, the film is pretty brutal. I don't know. I
love that just because like the guy's running away and all of a sudden you see him with a fucking flamethrower, just like.
I know there's definitely no fucks given to just like
human life.
Yeah, right? Or like like if they're surrendering, it's like oh well.
This place has got to get blown up.
We gotta get rid of him anyway.
I do love the fact that when like after the whole avalanche bit and Blofeld's like, oh, he's got to be dead now, and but the girl's still alive. Drag her over here. And Bond's back home at in London at MI6 stewing about what to do, trying to get M and them to okay an assault. And when that doesn't happen, he calls Draco up and he's like, yeah, I have a construction call for it. Demolition! And then you get to see him flying back to Peace Gloria, and, Draco's like, I am from the Red Cross. There's a great flood in Italy. We need to save the people. There's plasma and blood. And they're like, oh, okay.
I mean, speaking of the avalanche is a cool scene. You get that that warning sign, quiet. It's an avalanche zone.
Not only that, you get the great part where they pull up. Blofeld pulls up with his henchmen. Right, you three go down there. You stay up here. I don't like Tom.
Yeah, no, right. You guys go on down. I'm gonna shoot off this and
this flared up post. Set the avalanche off, which you do get that nice, as you said, stock footage of the fucking avalanche.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny seeing Tracy be like, James! And like the avalanche hasn't even hit her yet. And she's like, crumpling forward. And then you get to see Blofeld's associates getting wiped out by it. It's a
pretty cool scene. And I just wonder, like, how did James just get out easily? He's just like, I've extracted myself and I'm going back home. And
He's built like a brick shit house.
I know. And Tracy's just like, I don't know where she went, but oh well. We'll find her sometime. Yeah. But I like the that whole, the whole bit towards the end, where they're just storming in, take Blofeld, and it's pretty actiony. You got Tracy there, and they're like, "You've done enough. Come with me." They're like, "You know what? You can't help with this anymore.
You already killed it. You already killed Gunther.
Mm-hmm. We're taking you out of here."
Not only that, she gets fucking punched and knocked out for her troubles.
Does. Yeah. That leads me to like the end of the movie, with the wedding. Is great. How do you feel about Bond settling down with that wedding? What do you think about that?
It's fine because for your eyes only, not for your eyes only. And you only live twice. To try to fool Blofeld and become a Japanese ninja, he marries a woman. So the film before that already did that. So no, it is great, and I think it is really great, and it works great because I think the chemistry between George Lazenby and Diana Rigg, even though they did not like each other at all, you can't really see that in the chemistry because I think they work really well together, and I think Bond being a young, youthful, Lazenby being a young, youthful guy, and seeing this, it works out terrifically. Connery, depending on how he was feeling for this film, he could have been great. Even like at his older age, he could have been great in this. But if he was so jaded that he wasn't on speaking terms with the Broccolis, during You Only Live Twice, he could, with a script like this, he could have totally submarined it by being a piece of shit. So I think Lazenby does give that nice youthful bounce and energy and glow, and this relationship feels actually believable to where I honestly, outside of Daniel Craig and Ava Green and Casino Royale, you wouldn't be able to, to see that. And I still really love, the wedding and watching, Miss Moneypenny cry. I'm not saying because I want to see her cry, but I mean, just like, just kind of watching the wedding unfold. I say, just watching the wedding unfold and watching, Blofeld and Bunt, attack and kill Tracy at the end. It still gets me to this day. It's still really tragic, and I think the film knows enough to just let bygones be bygones and end on a note where just Bond's like, it's okay. As the passengers come by, we have all the time in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it ends on a pretty good note. Like, I like that it wasn't something where it just like ends and everything's happily ever after. And there's, it doesn't end on like a cheesy note.
It's like literally the most 60s ending ever because it's quick and like da 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 da, and you roll credits.
Yeah,
but it does fit the tone because like a modern day film would have like a 30-minute epilogue of like Bond getting his revenge.
Right. No, I like that. And my theory is that Bond had a hit out on Tracy. Put the hit out. He wanted that $1 million £1 million dowry, and he put the hit out to get out of that.
But he gave it away when they had the wedding. When Draco goes to give it to him, and
it's true.
But I mean, like,
do they bring this up in the next movie?
No.
Like, hey, Bond,
no.
Where's your wife? Wife died.
No, that's why Diamonds Are Forever is a fucking terrible film. And again, like, Connery shows up and he's like giggling the whole time, and it's like, you're supposed to be playing the guy whose wife just got killed by Blofeld, and you're here shoving him into fucking plastic goo and like, oh yeah, plastic surgery. And then Jimmy Dean shows up, and then Christopher Glover, his dad's in here as a gay assassin with him and Mr. Kidd. Fucking stupid. That movie's stupid. I hate that fucking movie so much. Don't even get me started. I hate Diamonds Are Forever so fucking much. But no, because again, like the franchise has no fucking continuity to it. They do bring it up later, and for your eyes only, which they did for petty reasons, because it's right after they settled the lawsuit with Kevin McClory, the co-writer of Thunderball. That's why we got the shitty Never Say Never Again, because he was a co-writer. He earned co-writer, co-producer credits for that book and movie. So that's the only part of Bond franchise that he owns. So that's why he made Never Say Never Again. And so when For Your Eyes Only came out, which was before then, and that's like after the dust settled on that lawsuit, in the beginning of that, which the film hasn't meant in 12 years from For Your Eyes Only and On Her Majesty's Secret Service, haven't had any mention of this film. You see Roger Moore at Tracy Bond's grave and then dump a man that they call Bald Man with Cat into a fucking pipe, which is supposed to be Blofeld, at the entry of the movie, has literally no bearing on the rest of the film or anything. He just like gets into a fight where he finds Blofeld in this like Chernobyl looking setting, takes a helicopter and hooks him up on his wheelchair as the bald man yells, "Mr. Bond! Mr. Bond!" And then he drops him down a pipe hole, and then like, ta-da! And that's your intro. The fucking continuity for this franchise is fucked.
It doesn't go anywhere.
No, but like,
it would be pretty cool if they bring it up, but they didn't.
That's why I say it's really sad that Lazenby decided to get conned by the hippies and like, oh, this franchise has no future. Go make Universal Soldier. It'll be so much better than this. And just turn this down, because I think if he stayed on, maybe this is wishful thinking and booking. If Lazenby decided, like, okay, I'll sign on for like another 2-film or 3-film contract, maybe when they do Diamonds Are Forever, it's not as serious as this. Mm-hmm. It's a little campier, but it's still grounded and it's going to follow something.
Yeah.
I think by the fact that he became detached and they brought Connery back, this film became totally excised from the franchise, where they just like, ignore, move on. And it's a shame, because this film is great. It's got some of the best direction in any Bond film. It's got the best action in any Bond film. It has the best Bond girl. There's so much here that's worthwhile, and I think is one of the biggest like mistakes that the franchise could ever make, because I think we could have been saved from so much crap after this.
Yeah, that is true. So, before we give this movie a rating, let's talk about the Christmassiness of it.
Christmas!
Because this is a Christmas movie. Or a Christmas episode, I'm sorry. And a Christmas movie. What, out of a scale of 10, how Christmassy is this movie for you?
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
They have a Christmas tree. They unwrap presents. They talk about having Bond over for Christmas dinner. There's not a 1-horse open sleigh, but a 2-horse open sleigh.
For no reason, too, by the way, because the other guy just drives his car up the road. Because they take a horse and sleigh, and he's just like, I'll follow along in the car.
Because it's Christmas, Ryan.
It's at that time, it's not even Christmas at all, because the girls, when Bond gets there, they say, "Are you staying with us for Christmas?" So it's still a little ways out for Christmas. So I don't know. We'll see.
It's in season. It's in season, though. He didn't stay up there for a fucking month. Are you kidding me?
So you're giving it a 7 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. I don't feel that a couple of trees in the background and a couple of pretty, white lights in the background constitutes a Christmassy movie. They do mention Christmas at around, I think it's about an hour in, is the first time we hear Christmas. And then later on, obviously it does take place during Christmas, and we see Christmas lights, Christmas decorations. As you mentioned, the 2-horse open sleigh. But it is not very Christmassy.
I think you're wrong.
And that's okay. It's okay. But it's not very Christmassy.
It's not okay. You could... Listen. is Christmassy. Just because it doesn't say hickory honey ham every 3 sentences doesn't mean it's not Christmassy.
Well, there was 0 instances of them saying Luther in this, so.
Not only that, just because they didn't say free Frosty,
Yeah.
or there wasn't any Carol of the Bells, doesn't
Nope.
mean. You know what's more Christmassy than that? John Barry playing, having somebody play the Moog synthesizer for him.
It's true.
Bam, 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 bam.
But that's okay. It's all right. It was Christmassy enough for this show, so I'll give it that.
What did you think of John Barry's score for this film?
I think it's good. I like the opening synth score to it, and then the Bond theme itself is actually really good too. But yeah, I like the synthiness to it.
I do. It's probably my favorite Bond score of all time too. I think the addition of the Moog synthesizer is really great. Works well. Just like that, especially. I really love the intro to this film, like the credits for the film. I think the score for that is great. Disappointed in the actual pre-title sequence though, because it just kind of looks like shit, because it's just like rehashed. Hey, remember Thunderball? Here's a picture of Thunderball, and hey, you remember this? Here's a picture from Goldfinger. Remember Honor Blackman? She's here.
I did want to point out too the very pointy nipples in the introduction.
Oh yeah, they were bare-titted in that.
Yeah. All right, so on a scale of 0 to 10, wet outdoor beds, what would you give on Her Majesty's Secret Service?
I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I love this film. I think it's great. It's a perfect film, even though it's not perfect. There's imperfections in it. It's a incredibly fun romp. The action is great. Still holds up today. It's well paced. At a 2 hour and 20-minute film, it doesn't feel like a slog. It's got a great story. It's a great spy thriller. I think Lazenby does a good enough job as Bond. Is he perfect? Absolutely not. But I think, given time, could have been the best Bond. Because he has the presence, he has the physicality. All the action sequences he's involved in are great. The action throughout is great. Like I said, the ski chases in this film are great. They're none to be better. Him escaping Peace Glory is great. None to be better. I think the setup is great. Diana Rigg is the best Bond girl. Is she the most attractive? Maybe not. But she's the best actress, the one you can connect with the most. She feels like a human being, just like everybody else in this film. The score is great. Everything about, even the imperfection in this film still make it great. This film is perfect. It's not just a perfect Bond film, it's a perfect film. It's well paced, it's well thought out. There's a lot of things going for it. Honestly, I could probably talk about it, more, but I love it. And I recommend anybody who's interested in the Bond franchise or just spy films in general to watch it, or action films, because it's a masterclass on how to do great things, but also be minimalistic in it too. Telly Savalas is also great as Blofeld. He's menacing, charming, smarmy. Comes off as a physical equal to Bond because of his size and his presence compared to Donald Pleasance. It's just a great fun ride. I love it. 10 on 10. It's one of my favorite films of all time.
I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. I think it's a good movie. I think it's a very, very entertaining throughout, especially as we get to the last hour of the movie. It just, continues to deliver action scene after action scene. The espionage is pretty good, and it does have a lot of the elements of the spy thriller, kind of what you would expect from an Ian Fleming type novel. Really pulpy at times, more realistic than some of the other Bond movies, which tend to get a little bit cheesier at times, or comedic. this one has a nice mix of that, and I truly appreciated that. I think it runs a little long. I think it probably could have cut a little bit. But
You're wrong.
no, I think it stands to lose a little bit here. But other than that, I think it's a really fun movie, and for espionage thriller, I think everybody did a good job. And it is unfortunate that George Lazenby did not reprise his role as James Bond, because I do think he did a pretty good job here. And does make the part well. So,
how would you compare him to the rest of the Bonds that you've seen?
How would I compare him? I think he's probably in the top of the Bonds that I've seen. I like the suaveness that he has more than like Daniel Craig has. Because I do see that more as a Bondiness than Craig. I
agree with that.
I mean, I think he has like both the swagger, the suaveness, and also too like a little bit of the comedicness at the heart of Bond, because he doesn't take everything super seriously, and I like that. I think that all works really well. So he's probably in the top tier of Bonds that I've seen.
I'd agree with that. As much as I like Craig, Craig's too brooding. Lazenby's definitely got that fine balance of beefcake, suave, smart, not smarmy. He doesn't really have smarmy, but I mean, just nice little quips. And like I said, like his most prominent features is the fact that he's a vulnerable Bond. And the only one that ever comes close to that is Craig in Casino Royale, where, after Le Chiffre gets capped and he's throwing in the sheets with Eva Green, you fucking bastard. But, like the rest of the franchise never even bothers coming close to that, because none of the other Bonds you could ever imagine that. Could you ever imagine Roger Moore being vulnerable like that?
No.
Or Connery? No, because they wouldn't allow themselves to be. They're veterans. They're, been around the block, Those Bonds have been through what this Bond has experienced. Whether, it's tied to continuity or not. They already have been, so you don't have to imagine Moore going through that or Connery going through that, so.
All right. So, we got to end this podcast by doing a combination of the Do You Freestyle West and East Coast in one drink.
I've been drinking it right now.
Yeah, I've been drinking it, and what I will say, combining them, is I think you do get the best of both worlds. You get a toned down juiciness, a little bit more of the dryness, and those come together to basically make a very, very similar tasting beer to the other two, but just maybe a little bit more nuanced with the juiciness is my official rating on that.
That's them just wanting you to buy both. Otherwise, they would have made that.
Well, do you agree? Do you agree, like, maybe it's a little bit more juicy by combining them, but effectively, it is the same tasting beer?
It is more juicy, but it's also a little bit more resiny, like the East Coast. So it's like, yeah, you get both of them, and it's like, that's what I should have paid for.
True. I don't know if I, would necessarily want this combined into just one beer. Maybe it's a little bit more balanced than both together. But, I think either way, out of the three different styles that we just tried, West Coast, East Coast combined, I think they're all very good, but they're all very samey. And there's really not a lot of distinguishing characteristics to, really point to say, yes, I really like this one in particular. It's really so close that it's, I don't know that most people would notice a huge difference.
Look at that. Piz Gloria is still a restaurant to this day, so we should go
I want the steak Piz Gloria. What is that? I need it. I love steak. How do they make it? in the Swiss Alps?
I don't know.
We'll have to find out.
We should probably go.
Yeah.
By the way, also, best Bond hideout of all time as well. Beast Glory is fucking great.
It is true. It's a very cool place. All right, so next up on our podcast for Festivus series is Trading Places. Trading Places. This is going to be kind of a fun one, and also kind of spans the gap of time between like Thanksgiving and New Year's, because Trading Places is not just a Christmas movie. It actually has parts of New Year's too. So we're going to get it all in one nice film.
I think you forgot the most important part.
What's that?
It's John Landis' film.
It is true. It is a John Landis film. I've only seen that movie once, so
I don't know how you've only seen it once. I've seen it like 7 times.
Wow.
I used to play it on Comedy Central all the time.
No, I've only seen it one time. This was quite a while ago too, so I don't remember it that well. But I'm excited to relive it.
It's back when Eddie Murphy used to be a blockbuster star.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One of these days we'll do Beverly Hills Cop so we can do Bronson Pinchot month.
I know. I've never seen any Beverly Hills Cop.
Which is funny because you own a copy.
I know.
Of Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Yeah.
What was that supposed to be?
It was supposed to be Jason X. Or no, I'm sorry. Not Jason X. It was Jason Goes to Hell.
See, you won out.
Yeah.
What's more important to have, Beverly Hills Cops 3 or Jason Goes to Hell?
Yeah, I know. All right, so let's finish this up. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed our episode on Her Majesty's Secret Service, even though it wasn't super Christmassy. If you did like it and you want to listen to the next episodes in our Festivus series, you can tune in to us on pretty much any podcasting app you can think of. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, home base at Anchor.fm, Good Pods. Subscribe to us, leave us a nice review. We're on Facebook and Twitter. Just find us on there. Search Blood and Black Rum Podcast. Appreciate your follows and likes and stuff. And then we have an email address at bloodandblackrumPodcast@gmail.com where you can write to us. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what movies you want to hear us cover, and we'll take that into consideration. And then finally, you can donate to us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/bloodandblackrumPodcast. Anything you can donate is really appreciated by us. We'll put it back towards beer. So thanks a lot for listening. Hope you have a happy holidays so far, and hope to see you back for our episode on Trading Places. Until then.
Take care.